So, international relations, part of the paper 2, general studies. With respect to mains, you have it in paper 2, general studies. The syllabus, although you have 4 components in the syllabus, you get at least 4 questions. You are getting conventionally every year we are getting 4 questions. 2 questions are of 10 markers and 2 questions are 15 marker questions. Okay, it means nearly 60 to 70 marks. If at all one more question is given, we will have somewhere near 60 to 70 marks in our pocket with respect to this IR module. So, syllabus is divided into 4 components only. While we are approaching IR, it is not only for mains exam we should approach. Use of learning international relations as a discipline, it helps us in paper 2 GS. Besides that, in mains itself, it helps us in the essay paper. As on today, the essays are, what type of essays we are getting in the essay paper? Reflective essays, all of them are reflective. The section 1 and section 2, both section 1 and section 2 we are getting reflective essays. But how to use this content that you learn as part of IR in these reflective essays, you can add one dimension, one IR dimension also. Or you have a lot of theories, you can bring on these theories, theoretical perspectives in the dimensions that you write in the essay. Okay. Besides essay paper, where it is useful, it is also useful in ethics paper. Questions on ethics in international relations, theoretical perspectives that we learn from different scholars, theorists, political scientists. It is also useful in, obviously in your interview preparation. Lot of questions are asked and which are mainly opinion based questions. India's role in maintaining India's bilateral relationship with other nations, India's role in the world, India's role in multilateral fora, India's role in fighting a lot of challenges, traditional and non-traditional threats. So these are the areas which IR will help us. Besides that, one more important aspect, obviously we should not miss this component, prelims exam. In prelims, if you take the year 2022, 16 to 17 questions came from IR. That was a bouncer for every candidate. They were confused why examiner was focusing on these many questions, especially from IR in 2022. Okay. Prelims also you have in prelims you have only one component of the syllabus which says that current events of international importance. Current events of international importance. This is the component we have. From these current events of international importance, we come across all the aspects that India is involved with respect to IR, its bilateral relations, and the intersections IR is having with many other subjects like map-based questions we come across, or any initiatives that the global bodies like United Nations organization are coming with, or any other conflicting territories or zones where India is having contesting claims over. Okay, you can say these are the dimensions that IR will be helpful to us. Initially, it would be mains. In addition to that, it will be helpful in our preliminary preparation also. Whereas in prelims, we have to objectify the things that we are learning. Objectification is, we take knowledge, we take content, we will use it for prelims in such a manner that, although you know that it is not descriptive, factual aspects have to be remembered. That is what objectifying is. Okay, we will be targeting that resource for the prelims specifically for prelims exam. That is with respect to prelims. When it comes to essay paper, obviously dimensional viewpoint, you have to write dimensions. For both 2 essays, you will be presenting 2 dimensions. Next, coming to ethics paper, yes, if at all a question is asked, you can take a lot of examples also while writing case studies. Case studies you write. While writing case studies, obviously it becomes important for us, it becomes necessary for us to bring on these examples and exemplify and show how it happens, how it works out with respect to ethics in IR. Or you can draw cross-country examples from other nations. Obviously, when you are cracking mains, going to the interview, questions on opinion-based questions on India's conflict with other nations, or if anything is in news, in the current times with respect to international happenings. Obviously, the interviewer will ask you definitely that sort of questions. And other thing is, in the interview, a lot of defense personnel are sitting. It is necessary. It is commonly found that a lot of defense personnel sit in the interview. Besides that, you have IFS officers sitting in the interview, foreign service officials. So they will definitely ask you a question on IR. Okay. So we should not eliminate this component of international relations just because you are only getting 4 questions out of it. If you find linkages, it will help you in modern India, it will help you in world history, it will help you in post-independent consolidation, it will help you in internal security as well. They have intersections with these dimensions of the syllabus. Okay, it is not a completely independent dimension of the syllabus we have. It has intersections with various dimensions in mains. Besides that, it is useful in preliminary examination also. Okay, I hope you are understanding this, the importance, coming to the importance of international relations for the exam. So then the question would be how to approach. How to approach this for the exam. Is it possible for us to approach in a logical manner? Can we approach that in a logical manner? Yes, we can approach this subject in a logical manner. Okay. So how to approach can be understood through the themes. It is not that we have to read everything. It is not that we have to go through everything. We have some syllabus. So the guidance is given by the syllabus. Syllabus gives us some sort of guidance to understand how we should approach this particular area of the syllabus. Right? Syllabus is very clear as we have got syllabus in 4 dimensions, 4 parts of the syllabus are available. Initially, it is India and its neighborhood. Gone through the syllabus? Any of you? India and its neighborhood is one component. Okay? And policies, programs or initiatives of developing and developed nations, their impact on India. What is the impact of these policies, initiatives of developing and developed nations? What sort of impact it would be there on India? That is the second dimension. Third is bilateral, regional, multilateral groupings. There are a lot of groupings. They include bilateral, regional, multilateral groupings. Okay. These groupings, example, I can talk about this something called as, you might have come across this grouping called as SAARC, South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. Or you might have come across this regional grouping called as BIMSTEC, Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technological and Economic Cooperation. Or you might have come across this BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, a regional grouping. So the regional groupings, bilateral, they might be bilateral grouping, they might be multilateral, okay, global groupings which impact the foreign policy of India. The fourth dimension would be the international organizations. This is where prelims get interesting. International organizations, a lot of international organizations, their structure, mandate, all these things. What is their structure? What is their administrative structure? What is their mandate? Why they were established? So how to approach? Obviously, syllabus gives one orientation. You have to go through India and neighborhood. You have to go through the policies and initiatives of developing and developed nations and how it impacts India's interests. The third dimension would be bilateral, regional, multilateral groupings and what is their role in India achieving its interest. Finally, it is about the international organizations, global bodies, international organizations and global bodies, their structure, mandate, what is their role in the world today. Okay. Based on the syllabus, we get to know the themes on the basis of PYQs that the examiner has been asking us continuously from some areas. So we have divided it into some themes to understand how examiner is thinking about IR when he is asking questions. So themes we can understand, we can come across some themes going through the PYQs. What are these themes? What do you mean by theme? What do you mean by theme? Theme is one perspective that examiner is thinking on perspective. He is having one orientation that I should ask questions on these specific elements. Continuously is repeating them. If you go with this syllabus, that is fourth chapter, that is fourth part of the syllabus, he has been asking questions on United Nations organizations, its bodies. He has asked questions on WTO, World Trade Organization. He has asked about United Nations Security Council. What are the reforms required in the United Nations Security Council? What sort of reforms are necessary in United Nations Security Council? The international bodies. Besides that, in COVID-19, WHO's role, and he was asking a question on what is the role of WHO, World Health Organization, in dealing with this unprecedented crisis that is a pandemic. So themes will give us some guidance that we should focus on some elements and we can leave some dimensions also. It is not that we have to read everything. The focus should be on some elements and we can confine to those aspects. Based on that, we can construct our preparation, the way we prepare for the exam. So we will go through those themes once. We will understand how this thematic approach will help us. If you go through the number of questions we are getting on a yearly basis, how many questions we are getting on average? If you observe, before the syllabus was changed in 2013 and 14, they were more in number. Even 8 questions we used to get, because the importance for IR in various GS papers was huge. After 2015, the syllabus changed. You can observe, examiner is dedicating the same number of questions every year. It would be 4 questions, 15 and 15, 10 and 10. It means 50 marks you will be getting. Questions from 2023-24 also, same thing as repeated. I have gone through the 2024 mains paper where we have got 4 questions, 2 10 markers and 2 15 markers. And he was not going deeper. He was asking very basic questions we come across in the newspaper on a daily basis. Besides that, we need to have some background information, back-end linkages in order to clearly understand and write answer to. Okay, he was asking on terrorism, basic question he was focusing on. Next, topic-wise distribution of the questions. We have the syllabus here and topic-wise distribution. It gives us one idea where the examiner's focus is. The examiner's focus here, if you observe, it is on bilateral, regional, global groupings and agreements involving India and affecting India's interests. This is literally the syllabus. Okay, bilateral, regional and global groupings and agreements involving India and India's interests. I told you what are some of the bilateral groupings we have. BRICS we have. Shanghai Cooperation Organization has been in news continuously. Some organization that is quadrilateral dialogue mechanism, where USA is trying to reduce the power of China in South Asia and Southeast Asia. We had Quad in news. Quad was asked in the exam. Quadrilateral dialogue. Example I am telling you. We will discuss all other associated issues. Just I am telling you the name. Coming to the second component, from he is asking questions regularly. He is repeatedly asking one question from India and its neighborhood relations. Besides that, he is asking questions on important international organizations, their structure, mandate, multilateral fora, their structure and mandate. He was asking questions on these dimensions also. Okay. So third importance would be, least importance, effect of policies and politics of the developed and developing nations, how it will impact the interests of India. Okay. 4 components, we are getting conventionally 4 questions from all these areas, being more weightage being given to the second component, that would be the bilateral, regional, global groupings, how they are impacting India's policies. Next, coming to prelims syllabus. What is the syllabus we have in prelims? Current events of national and international importance. So current events, if they are current events of any sort, if India is interested, India is involved, or even if India is not involved, as an aspirant, as an officer, you should learn some dimensions, what are happening in and around. Like Ukraine-Russia conflict, or Israel-Palestine, or Sahel region in Africa. Sahel region in Africa, it was a question in prelims in 2024. What is the Sahel region, which is always a conflicting zone in Africa? The Central African nations, which are backward, underdeveloped. So if at all that sort of things are coming in the newspaper, it is important for every aspirant as a layman or a common man. It is important for them because your own security, your own existence is dependent on how the relationship among various nations work out. Okay, let us imagine that there is a scenario of World War III. Can there be any guarantee for the lives of individuals? No. So in that context, general reading perspective is also important, besides from the perspective of current events of international importance where India is involved. So this is a syllabus we have, and we focus on what multilateral institutions. When it comes to prelims, our focus would be specifically on some themes like regional and multilateral institutions, diaspora, understanding the diaspora activities of Indian diaspora, people of India living in other countries, their role in India's relationship with other nations, any initiatives from any global organizations like WTO, WHO, United Nations organization, or if at all United Nations Security Council is passing one resolution against fighting terrorism, or any such novel, innovative solutions to the challenges that the world is facing today. Obviously, they are of paramount importance for every aspirant. What are the number of questions we get in prelims? 2022 we observed 13 to 17 that is contested, but 17 questions nearly came from IR in 2022. Conventionally, we can take the average 6 to 7 questions we get from this component in the syllabus. 6 to 7 questions we are getting from this component. So that is why I have divided into yearly basis. I have divided, and I found out that average we are getting, because we have intersections with other subjects also. IR and places in use, IR and the policies of the world, IR and the India's bilateral relations. Like that, we have some intersections. Based on those intersections, we are coming across the questions. Average being some 6 to 7 questions we are regularly getting in prelims also. Now coming to the thematic approach, we should approach the component with the dimension of the syllabus, with this dimension of the syllabus through some themes. What are those themes that I have delineated? Theme 1, it would be about the concept of power. The concept of power. First theme that we come across is the concept of power and how various nations use this power to achieve their interest, that is called as national interest. Okay, every nation tries to maximize something while they are interacting with other nations, and that is called as national interest. This is the reason why we interact with other nations. This can be considered as the ultimate objective or goal of any nation. National interest, to achieve their national interest is the goal. Okay, that is why they conduct their foreign policy, something called as a foreign policy, a policy of any nation. How they should interact with other nations is nothing but foreign policy. So foreign policy is designed and implemented to achieve this national interest. So first aspect is power. What is the meaning of power? What do you mean by power? You might have come across this concept called as power in your lives. Many a times you are influenced by power, or you might have used power against any other person. What do you mean by power? Power is the ability of modifying the behavior of other individuals. In interpersonal relations, power is the ability of modifying the way they think, modify their decisions. That is what power is. Influencing others' decisions is power. In international context also, international relations context also, power is the ability of one nation to influence or modify the behavior of other nations. So concept is power. How different nations use power to achieve or maximize their national interest is the first theme. So theme 1, power. Examples you can observe: diaspora. One sub-theme we have is diaspora. What is diaspora? Diaspora is people of one nation living in other nations. People of one nation living in other nations for employment opportunities, or they have migrated to other nations. Whatever might be the reason, they are living in other nations. Some reasons you can find which are inadvertent reasons, like Britishers taking away Indians from India to work in other nations, plantations of other nations. Okay, so that is first theme, and the question sub question you find is diaspora. Diaspora has important role to play in modifying the modifying the way nations think about India, nations approach India. Next, international forums. A lot of international forums were there, and today the buzz is about energy transition. Nations today are powerful and they want energy transition. Energy transition from fossil fuel based energy resources to renewable energy based resources. The power struggle is happening between developed countries and developing world. The third, you can observe diaspora, again repeated, diaspora in Europe. Again you can see India's role in new world order. Post 1991, there was disintegration of, you might have come across this, 1947 to 1991, there was something happening in the world called as Cold War. 1947 to 91, Cold War was happening in the world. Cold War and Hot War, what is this difference? Cold War is a war where it is not actually a war. It is a verbal war, you can say, verbal contestation. Always there is this situation of brinkmanship, brink of war. The situation of brink of war. Every moment is like they are going to war, but they don't actually went to war. If at all they went to war, obviously it would have become World War III. So that is the situation. So India's role in this new world order, this was the question in 2019. And 2015, the question was on India and United Nations Security Council, because India was voicing its concern to achieve reforms in United Nations Security Council. In that context, India and United Nations Security Council was the question being asked. Okay, so this is what first theme is, that is theme 1, hard, soft and smart power. The different types of power. While discussing the terminology power, I will introduce you to this concept of power, the types of power. Next theme we have is international organization, similar, aligning with the syllabus. Theme 2 is international organizations. Now you can observe on the right side, what are the questions he is asking? One question is on NATO. Why do you think NATO was being asked? The reason would be Ukraine-Russia conflict. Ukraine-Russia conflict and the probable involvement of USA. USA is the leader of this NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Okay. After that, a question on International Maritime Organization regarding the regulation of the high seas. Next, we have another question on World Health Organization. World Health Organization, what is the year? You understand here how examiner is focusing on questions. 2020, COVID-19 crisis, role of WHO was asked. Next, coming to another question in 2019, he was focusing on UNESCO. Some nations came out of UNESCO. What is this UNESCO? United Nations Economic, Scientific and Cultural Organization. What is its role in the world in protecting minority cultures? Was the context of this question. Next, we have a question on WTO. 2018, we had a question on World Trade Organization and the reforms in World Trade Organization. Coming to 2017, ECOSOC. What is ECOSOC? Economic and Social Council of United Nations. United Nations organization has lot of sub-bodies, attached offices. Economic and Social Council is one such organization. So Economic and Social Council, what are the main functions of Economic and Social Council? Different functional commissions which are attached to it. That was the theoretical question he was asking, very basic level question without any connection to the current affairs he was asking. Again, WTO is repeated. Here it is. It was in 2016 he was asking a question. 2018 he has repeated. UNESCO, it was repeated. In 2016 he was asking. 2019 he was asking. A question on information technology agreement under WTO was one such question he was asking. Next is NDB and AIIB. What is NDB? New Development Bank and Asian Infrastructure and Investment Bank. He was asking a question on this. Okay. Next would be WTO. Was it repeating? Yes, it is also a repeating theme. World Trade Organization was also another repeating theme. Bretton Woods organizations. What is this Bretton Woods organization? A lot of organizations have emerged post World War II. Post World War reconstruction was the agenda after massive destruction of the world. Okay, the nations which were the so-called successful nations post World War II, they thought that we need to rebuild the world. Rebuilding world is possible only through institutions. Institutions, one meeting was conducted at Bretton Woods, a place called as Bretton Woods, and there they have taken some decisions to establish these organizations like World Bank, International Monetary Fund and GATT, General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs. later it became World Trade Organization. So World Bank, IMF and World Trade Organization, like that they came into existence. Okay, so understood what sort of organizations he is focusing on, the theme to international organizations. We are discussing thematic approach. We have started discussing thematic approach, and initially we have gone through this theme of power, how power is an important aspect that the examiner is focusing on to give questions in IR component. Second thing we have discussed is international organizations. He has repeatedly is asking he is asking questions on some international organizations like WTO, international United Nations bodies. He is focusing on the attached offices of United Nations, the bodies of United Nations. Next, coming to theme 3. Theme 3 is Central Asia. What is this Central Asia? What do you mean by Central Asia? First component of the syllabus we have is India and its neighborhood. India and its neighborhood. Neighborhood, we have lot of nations. What are they? We have one favorite nation in the neighborhood. You should tell its name. Yes, obviously it is Pakistan. Next, the second favorite goes to China. Besides that, we have Bangladesh. We have Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Maldives, Mauritius. These are in the neighborhood. Besides the neighborhood, India's relations extend to the extended neighborhood also. We want to establish relationship with the extended neighborhood. Extended neighborhood of India includes what? Central Asia, Southeast Asian nations, the West Asia. All these are considered as extended neighborhood. Central Asia includes Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan. These nations are considered as Central Asian nations, and he was asking on the theme Central Asia. In the background, the theme here is on India's extended neighborhood. Okay, as a part of India's extended neighborhood, one sub theme we have is Central Asia. Okay, he was asking questions on what? In Central Asia, we have an organization which is playing an important role in promoting political, economic and security cooperation. That is Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It has been in news continuously. Every year we come across Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. It has this unique distinction. Shanghai Cooperation Organization has unique distinction of having India, Pakistan and China important regional players. It includes nations because India and Pakistan were allowed to join SCO in 2017. It has these contesting nations as part of it. And it is an arena of cooperation as well. So in that context, Shanghai Cooperation Organization has repeated 2 times. Observe here. 2021 and 23 was asking question on SCO. On the other hand, one question he was asking on the same dimension of Central Asia, Ashgabat Agreement, which is sub-agreement under SCO. It means literally he was asking 3 times, SCO 3 times, Shanghai Cooperation Organization 3 times. On the other hand, I told you other dimension of extended neighborhood would be one of India's extended neighborhood is Central Asia, other is Southeast Asia and Middle East. Middle East for the Westerners, and it is West Asia for India. Whether it is Middle East or West Asia, one and the same. If in India's perspective it is called as West Asia, in Westerners' perspective it is called as Middle East. So the question was on one of the alliances that Middle East has witnessed after many years, similar to what we have seen in Southeast Asia, similar to what we had in Southeast Asia called as quadrilateral dialogue. We also have this I2U2 alliance, including nations like India, Israel, UAE and USA, formed as a grouping to bring this balance of power in West Asia. Okay, that is called as I2U2 alliance. It is also called as Quad of the West. Quad of the West. So understood here how he is asking questions very strategically, keeping in mind which organization is playing what role in the world, in the global geopolitics. Coming to theme 4. India's neighborhood, obviously we should focus on neighborhood, and we have an examiner has a lot of scope to ask questions on various dimensions because he has a lot of scope in terms of number of nations existing here, and now and then you have something in news with respect to these neighborhood nations. Okay, if you take the example of China, it has always been in news. Pakistan, it is dormant now. But coming to other nations, Bangladesh, it is in news because of military taking over power. Or India-Sri Lanka relations, they were perennially, UPSC was focusing perennial on India-Sri Lanka relations. Or else, if at all, or else the reason being, in 2024, there was a reason why he was asking India-Maldives. He was right away asking question on India-Maldives, the reason being India out campaign in Maldives, which was again came into the context, it came to the surface. India out campaign was very well there before in Maldives, and again it resurfaced. A question was asked on India-Maldives relations. So based on the current context, based on the current affairs and news, based on the things that are repeatedly coming in the news, based on the gravity of the topic, he is posing questions. Okay. So Sri Lanka, next is regional groupings in South Asia, in the neighborhood, that is BIMSTEC, Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technological and Economic Cooperation. Other would be China. SAARC is another aspect he was focusing on, but SAARC is redundant and obsolete today. The questions on SAARC were reduced. And Project Mausam, very important initiative that Government of India came up with respect to bringing or aligning all the neighborhood nations in the Indian Ocean, which were historically, culturally connected by this phenomena called as monsoon. Okay, in order to connect all of them together, Indian government has come up with this project called as Project Mausam to revive the ancient cultural traditions, shared history and past, okay, that we had with these nations in the Indian Ocean, which is being called as Project Mausam. He was right away was asking question on Project Mausam, which the Indian government initiated on that year in 2015. Next, the question would be on 2015. Pakistan and terrorist attacks in India, 2015. There were a lot of attacks on India post 2014 on the air bases, on the military bases of India. Pathankot, Uri, all these are examples. Okay. Question on Pakistan. Next, 2013. 2013 is very important in South Asia. The reason being instability in Afghanistan. Instability in Afghanistan, and USA is moving out of Afghanistan. USA forces moving out of Afghanistan. USA has established itself in Afghanistan to fight against terrorism, to eliminate terrorism from the world. Okay, they were impacted by this 9/11. 9/11 has made them to open their eyes, and they have perceived terrorism as an imminent threat to the world. Okay, it was in 2001, this 9/11 event happened. Since then, they have started, they were present in Afghanistan, and after many years of their armed forces being sent to Afghanistan, they want to go out of Afghanistan in 2013. And 2014, they have taken a decision to go out of Afghanistan. And it was in 2021, the last soldier of USA went out of Afghanistan, giving away power to Taliban in 2021. So next would be a question on China and its policy of string of pearls, how it is implementing or substantiating its policy called as string of pearls, as a pearl around the neck of India, how it is constricting India, how it is balancing India's power in Indian Ocean. Next, coming to other nation, that is Bangladesh, a question conventionally asked on Bangladesh. Maldives, it was in 2003, he was asking a question on Maldives. Again, 11 years after that, he was asking a question in 2024. Sri Lanka, repeated. Another aspect is Gujarat Doctrine, directly as asked on Gujarat Doctrine. What is Gujarat Doctrine? What are its principles? Very direct question. And you have to observe here, it is before the syllabus change. It means you have some questions which are 5 markers also. 10 markers, 5 markers, and questions of a 10 marker question being divided into 5 and 5 markers. Because of that, we have Gujarat Doctrine being right away asked. What is this doctrine is the main theme. So fourth aspect of our thematic approach would be India's neighborhood, the nations which are important, which are repeatedly in the news. Obviously, a question can be expected on those areas which are in the news. Next, theme 5. Theme 5, mostly it is relevant now and then, that is India's relationship with Africa. Today, the world is concentrated on Africa. Everybody is in Africa today. USA is in Africa, China is in Africa, India is in Africa. Why is it? The resources Africa has, the critical mineral resources or rare earth elements that Africa has got. Okay, everybody wants to extract these resources and use them for their benefit. Understood? So he was asking a question on growth story of Asia and what is the situation of Africa? How is it like this? Why is it like this? And increasing interest of India in Africa. What is the reason why India's interest in Africa has been growing? That was the question on Africa. Next, coming to another theme, that is India and world. India and world here includes India and greater powers. What are those greater power nations? Great powers you can say. USA, Russia, European Union, these are great nations. And China can be considered, but both of us are contesting over this role of a superpower. We don't want to add China here in the greater powers, though it is emerging and giving a tough competition to USA as well. So coming to those nations we can come across in India and world. USA is one theme, USA and Cold War, then India and USA relations, India-USA relations, he has been repeating the same theme. India and Russia, he has not asked a question on India and Russia. Specific sub-themes he might be asking, but directly he was not asking on India-Russia relations. He was interested more in India-USA relations. Okay. Then another theme, we have theme number 7, that is Act East policy. We have discussed about extended neighborhood, we have covered Central Asia, we have covered West Asia, we are remaining with Southeast Asia. This is what Southeast Asia is. This is a sub-theme, that is Southeast Asia. Extended neighborhood of India, the third dimension of extended neighborhood, Southeast Asia. And the policy we have in order to approach Southeast Asia is Act East policy. We have initiated something called as Look East policy. Look East policy to maximize the benefits we can get from the Southeast Asian nations. Look East policy. Then we have transformed that into Act East policy in the year 2014. It was way back in 1991, P.V. Narasimha Rao brought this idea of Look East policy, and we have transformed that under Narendra Modi as Act East policy. Whatever we are doing under Look East policy is not sufficient. We have to move beyond this, broad base our partnership with these nations and get more dividends from this. That is called as Act East policy, and the alliances of Southeast Asia are also concerned here. We are concerned about how USA is trying to align with India and Southeast Asian nations like Australia and Japan in order to reduce the power or balance the power of China. China is a contestant for superpower, this role of superpower in the world. In order to balance the power of China, USA is in South Asia today, Southeast Asia today, it is in Indian Ocean, it is in Pacific Ocean. It has formed one alliance called as AUKUS. It is about the UK also, Australia, UK, USA. Then it has come up with Quad. What is Quad? Quadrilateral dialogue. It includes nations like India, Australia, USA, Japan, these nations. So 4 groups, 4 nations forming as a quadrilateral. That is called as quadrilateral dialogue. Okay. Next, relations of India and Japan. Relations between India and Japan. It was a question in 2019. 2017 was right away questioning on India-ASEAN relations. India and ASEAN. What is ASEAN? Association for Southeast Asian Nations, one grouping which emerged in the year 1967. ASEAN. Next, the policy is on Look East. You can observe the policy of Look East and Act East are very famous. In 2016, he was asking on Look East policy of India. Because Act East came into existence in 2014, what is the relevance of Act East? In spite of having Look East, why we wanted to initiate this Act East was the reason why he was asking one question on Look East policy. Next question, 2014, he was focusing on one of the conflicting areas in Southeast Asia, that is South China Sea. South China Sea is a zone which is south of China, and it considers whole of South China Sea South China Sea belongs to China. That is what China believes in. Okay, it has come up with 8-line, 9-line to claim all the territories, mainly island nations in South China Sea, like Spratly, Parasil, Scarborough, island nations. Okay, but the world knows that these island nations are not own territories of China. Okay, there are a lot of nations which are having contesting claims over these territories, like Vietnam, Philippines, Brunei, Singapore. All these nations are having contesting claims. So in that context, you can observe a question on South China Sea, because in 2014, India has been opining its position on South China Sea. What is India's position on South China Sea? Because we have seen China continuously entering Indian Ocean. China is trying to irritate India across the line of actual control. It is necessary for us India should come up with one orientation or opinion towards South China Sea. That was one question in 2014. And then again, you can observe, if at all he is asking a question on bilateral relations in Southeast Asia, he is interested in asking on Japan, India-Japan relations. You can observe India-Japan being repeated in 2019 as well. So last theme we have is look west. Act East and Link West became the policy today. Look East and Look West policies were there before. Look East policy is there already. And since 1991 we have this Look East policy. Look West was also another doctrine we have. Look West policy is to consider those nations, enhance your partnership with these nations in West Asia. Look West policy. Now it became Link West. Act East and Link West is the agenda today or motto today. Initially it was Look East and Look West. Today it is Act East and Link West. Connectivity projects, connectivity is new currency today. Without connectivity, regional integration is not possible. Without regional integration, all the nations would not become prosperous. In South Asia, Southeast Asia and West Asia, Central Asia, connectivity is necessary. That is why China is coming up with this Silk Road Economic Belt, that is Belt and Road Initiative. Yes, it has come up with Silk Road Economic Belt. It has also come up with the Maritime Silk Route. So these are the aspects he was focusing on. India-Israel relations. India-Israel relations, he was interested in asking India-Israel continuously. One or the other way. In prelims also he was asking Israel-Palestine conflict once. The two-nation theory he was asking. Okay. So what is this de-hyphenation and hyphenation policy we have with respect to Israel-Palestine? That was the context why we have a question on Israel-Palestine relations in 2018. You might have come across in newspapers about something called as de-hyphenation. When we talk about the relationship between India and Israel and Palestine, while we write Israel-Palestine, we use one hyphen. Why we use this hyphen? Any sort of relations that we have with Israel will have an impact on Palestine. India moving closer towards Palestine will have impact on Israel. How to maintain this independence in relationship with India and Palestine, India's relationship with Israel and Palestine is of importance. How to maintain independent relationship with both Israel and Palestine without each other being affected by India's relation. India moving closer towards Palestine or India may move towards Israel. Whatever might be the case, we maintain independence in our foreign policy even if the other nation is having one personal perspective towards India. That is de-hyphenation. We have de-hyphenated, we have eliminated this hyphen. It means we are approaching these nations independently with independent foreign policy perspectives and objectives. So that was the reason why he was asking a question through this de-hyphenation dimension. He was asking a question on India-Israel. And other question you can expect, obviously, the axis between USA, Iran and India. USA, Iran and India. Because there were sanctions on Iran, because Iran has been enriching its uranium, and enriched uranium can be used for arms, making arms. In that context, he was asking on USA, Iran, India alliance relationship between these. So 2018 was the year. Then again, he was asking a question in 2017 on India, West Asia. A plain, very normal, straightforward question on India's relationship with all the nations in West Asia or India's foreign policy towards West Asia. Right? So these are the themes that we come across. When we go through all the previous year questions, we can delineate them into some themes very objectively. We can categorize them, and approach to the exam should be like this. It should not be like blindfolded. We are not blindfolded anymore. We have PYQs. PYQs gives us some guidance. It gives us some insights how to approach this part of the syllabus. Okay, 7-8 themes we have covered, and while discussing them also, with more emphasis on all the aspects that we are going to discuss in the upcoming classes, you will understand why this thematic division is important. Okay, any doubts on things that we have discussed until now? Anything you want to ask? Any doubt on things that we have discussed until now? Nothing? Okay. I can move forward, right? As we have gone through the syllabus and the thematic approach, it is necessary that we need to get introduced to some terminologies integral to the learning of this subject or discipline, international relations. Terminology. Some terminologies we need to know. They are integral for learning this subject. So initially we have where to search for. We'll directly go to this term, that is international relations. What do you mean by this term, international relations? We'll start with this very term called as international relations without wasting time. So international relations, what do you mean by international relations? We will break down this term into international and relations. Relations, we know, every individual today, people are interested in interpersonal relations, not international relations. That is the problem. So interpersonal relations is okay, human relations. So international is inter, obviously you know intra and inter difference. Inter is between, national, between nations. International relations. But we are very easily breaking that down into international relations. That is not as easy as possible. Okay. International relations, conventional definition is, yes, it is relations between nations, among nations. Conventional idea is the relationship between two nations or among some nations is international relations. Whereas the modified definition or evolved definition of international relations also include various other elements. So these elements in international relations, whether it is a nation or something else, okay, whether a nation or something else, they are called as elements, and elements can be categorized into actors. Elements, they are actors. It is not movie actors here. So any player, you can say, simply synonym is player. Any player in international relations, it is called as actor. Okay, actor might be a state actor, actor might be a non-state actor. Actor might be a state actor, actor might be a non-state actor. So as we are arriving at this term called as state, it becomes necessary for us to understand what state is. Okay, we come across the terms called as terms like what? State, nation, and we also come across nation, state. These are the terminologies we come across. What is a state and what is a nation? What is a state and nation? What do you mean by state? What is a state? You have some elements again: society, state, nation, or nation state. Nation state. What is state? What do you mean by state? Which is first, state or society? Which is first? Which is earliest? Society. Society is already existing, right? What sort of society was existing? If you take ancient times, what sort of society can we expect? Society, is it organized? Society is not organized. It is unorganized. Society is unorganized itself because there was nobody to modify the behavior of individuals. There was no entity. There was no entity to tell the people that you should behave in this particular manner. Okay? And society is unorganized. Society, because of this unorganized society, it led to chaos. There is no peace. There is no security to the life, liberty and property of the individuals. That led to chaos. So society is in chaos and we need some solution to the chaos. Solution to the chaos is possible only when you are appointing one individual who is supreme, powerful to modify the behavior of all people and establish some sort of peace. That we call him as sovereign. Sovereign is all powerful entity, a person, an entity, an institution, whatever it might be. Sovereign came into existence because people in the society, at least they have given some part of their power to this person or entity called as sovereign to overcome this chaotic environment where people are against each other. They are ready to kill each other. That is a chaotic situation. There is no respect for life, liberty and property. Every man is against other man. So in that context, one sovereign was established, sovereign came into existence. He started controlling the behavior of people. And through sovereign we have come across this entity called as state. State as one organized political entity came into existence with some features. What are the features of state? Initially, we need to have one territory with boundaries. It has population also. The territory has population. Yes, without population, it becomes unnecessary for state to be existing. The third element, government is necessary. You have given power to the sovereign. Sovereign will form government. Government will have many organs. These organs will be used as instruments for achieving certain end goals. Okay? Government has a lot of other organs. Government becomes tool in the hands of state to administer the people. In addition, if they are not independent, it means there is another important factor which allows the sovereign to exercise his rule or authority, which is called as sovereignty. Okay? So we need to have territory, population, government and sovereignty. Right? So these are the elements of state: territory, population, government and sovereignty. Then do we actually have sovereignty for the states? Are states actually sovereign in principle? In letter they are sovereign. In letter and spirit they should be sovereign. In letter they are already sovereign. In spirit they are not sovereign. So actual sovereignty is non-interference. What is the meaning of sovereignty? Non-interference or no external interference in the internal matters. That is sovereignty. Okay, nobody should interfere. No external interference. No external interference is what sovereignty means here. Okay, no external interference of any entity in the internal affairs of any territory, any state we call it as. Then we can consider that state as completely sovereign entity. Whereas what is happening to states which were established? States originated with Greek city-states. Initially, state as an entity, you can observe that in Greek city-states came into existence. City-state is a urban area. There was some sort of organized administration, what we call as state and its features. You can observe those features in the Greek city-states. It was in Greece we found them, but they are not actually sovereign because of interference. Because of religion interfering in the matters. Religion interfering. Because of religion continuously interfering, they are not completely sovereign. Religion has already interfered in the sovereign aspects of these sovereign states. And you can observe that in Roman Empire. Medieval times you observe Roman Empire and you find this phenomenon of religion continuously interfering in the decisions being taken by the state. Whatever religion pleases you, based on that you have to take the decision. So what was the religion? Holy Roman Empire we call it as, the so-called Holy Roman Empire. And the religion was Roman Catholicism. Roman Catholicism was a religion. And religion was being imposed. Religion was being imposed by the Holy Roman Empire on all the territories. This is the empire and there are a lot of states in it. And Holy Roman Empire's administration is imposing the same religion in all the states. And there is no scope for following your own dispensation of religion. Let us say we have Protestants, we have Calvinites. They are not allowed to follow their own religion. Calvinism is one such dispensation of Christianity. They were not allowed to practice this. For that reason, they were always in conflict. The smaller states, they are always in conflict with Holy Roman Empire. They were in conflict with many years and that led to a war. 30 years conflict they were in. For 30 years they were in war. Starting from the year 1618 to 1648, they were in war. Just because there was external interference in the internal matters and there was no actual sovereignty being exercised by them. They were in war for 30 years. That is famously called as 30 Years' War, which ended in 1648 with a treaty among themselves at Westphalia. That is Treaty of Westphalia. What are the outcomes of this Treaty of Westphalia? One of the outcome they have accepted is non-interference in internal affairs. Non-interference is one aspect. and self-determination is other dimension. Non-interference in the internal matters, self-determination to achieve whatever they want, to set their goals, to achieve their goals with some efforts. They can determine what religion they can have. They can determine what sort of policies they can initiate. This Treaty of Westphalia is a territory, region. The agreement was signed at that place and Holy Roman Empire has accepted, and new territories came into existence, new states came into existence with real sovereignty as their feature. So before there was no actual sovereignty, there was influence of religion. Today, you can follow your own religious dispensation, you are allowed to follow. There will not be any external interference in the territorial matters, religious matters. You are free to follow your own way. That is what sovereignty is. Sovereignty has emerged as one principle, and states have become truly sovereign through Treaty of Westphalia. So then we have discussed this element called as state. We are done with state, along with how sovereignty has emerged, how states have actually become sovereign. Then coming to this construct called as nation. What is nation? How it is different from this element called as state? Whereas when we discuss about state is a theoretical construct with these features, whereas nation is a psychological construct. Nation is psychological and emotional construct. Nation is psychological and emotional construct. It is not a theoretical construct. It is theoretical. It is not theoretical. It is psychological and emotional construct in the context of what? Similar people with shared culture and history, practices, religion, language, shared culture you have. So in the nation, individuals have some shared elements. They share some elements. Okay? It is a psychological and emotional construct. In a nation, people share some elements. What are they? They share their culture. What else they share? It might be ethnicity, which is part of culture. Besides that, they also share languages. They might also share shared history and past. They are psychologically, emotionally attached. We feel that India is greater than any other nation. It is a psychological and emotional construct. It is not a theoretical construct. We have how many languages we have in India? Accounted in the constitution, we have some 22 languages. Beyond that, at least 5,000 uncounted languages, 5,000 plus languages which have dialects, which have scripts, which don't have scripts. Diversity. Okay, so nation is emotional and psychological construct where people with shared concern, shared past, history, culture, religion, shared past, you can say, they come together to form one nation. Okay, so you might be finding that state and nation being same, one and the same sometimes. Whereas all the features that state should have, that is a territory, population, government and sovereignty will be there for that state. And they also have these people who are living in the state, they also share these kind of things. Okay, then you call it as this feature, the intersection, we call it as nation state. Both nation and state coming together. You have the features of nation, you have the features of state in the same territory. Like if you take the example of Japan. Japan has shared culture, history, and it has a territory also. It has government, population, territory and sovereignty. It has shared history and culture. Then it is called as nation state. Simply we are calling it as nations today for simpler understanding. Nation state is also theoretical, but simply we call them as nations. United Nations, meaning all the nations united. So simply we come across this term, we use this term called as nation only. Understood? So we have nations, states, we have society, state, nation, nation state. In order to clearly differentiate, you have some nations which are not states. Nations which are not states. What are they? There are nations, if I make this statement, there are nations, but not states. They are not states yet. They are nations, but they are not states yet. Example, you have a lot of examples to take. Okay. You have an ethnic group called as Kurds, who live across the borders in these nations, who live in the borders of Syria, Iran, Iraq. They are called as Kurds. Kurd is the ethnic group. They share same culture. They have similar. They are having shared history, culture, past. They share religion. They share customs and traditions, ethnicity, one and the same. Are they a nation today? Are they a state today? Do they have features of state? Do they have a fixed territory and government? No. They only claim that we are common people, we are united people and we want one state. They are fighting for their state called as Kurdistan. They fight for their state called as Kurdistan. They want Kurdistan. Their demand is creation of one state called as Kurdistan. They have emotional constructs, they have shared culture and history. Emotional and psychologically they are connected, but they don't have a state. So there are nations which are not yet states. Okay, so you also have nation states. You also find nation states where the cultural uniformity is not available. You find nation states where they are not culturally uniform. There is a lot of diversity in these nation states. There are nation states which are not culturally uniform. Obviously, it would be India. India is ultra diverse. You don't find same culture. You find diverse cultures, diverse practices, customs and traditions, religions and all. Right? So nation states which are culturally diverse, religiously diverse, ultra diverse, you can say bright example would be India. If you want to take one example of uniform nations which are nation states and uniformity is there in culture, you can take Japan. Japan is an example. Or nations that have emerged post World War II based on ethnicity in Europe, Uzbeks, Serbia. Serbia is one nation. Okay, Czechoslovakia, Czechs, ethnicity, like that. So these are the distinctions we have where the emergence of these four components, we have to know these four components at least in order to understand what is society, what is state, nation and nation state, in order to understand what international relations is. So now coming to the definition perspective again. So what are international relations today? Relationship between nations, among nations, international. International includes what? Actors. Actors in international relations can be state actors. State here is obviously what we call as nation today. Interchangeably, we use this term state and nation. That happens in understanding the subject. Normally, when we go through the subject, state and nation are interchangeably being used. Okay. So, actors in international relations. Actors are participants in international relations. Actors can be state actors. It means nations. Whereas you also have non-state actors as well, which are not at all connected to state. It means they are independently existing. They are independent entities. For example, you can say NGOs, non-governmental organizations, Greenpeace. Greenpeace is an environmental NGO of this world. Okay. And you have other non-state actors called as terrorist organizations. A lot of terrorist organizations. You can tell me some examples of terrorist organizations. Hizbul Mujahideen, Hamas, and Hezbollah, Jamaat-ud-Dawa, Haqqani Network, Lashkar-e-Taiba. All these are organizations which are non-state actors. They are not connected to state. They exist independently, autonomously, without being attached to state. And you also have a lot of MNCs, multinational corporations. You can tell some examples. What are they? Google, Amazon, which are influencing our lives on a daily basis. Everybody is interested in e-commerce. Eye on e-commerce, leave anything behind. So, MNCs, a lot of MNCs also play important role in international politics. That is also a non-state actor. Okay? So, you have state actors, non-state actors. Besides that, you can take the examples of a lot of religious organizations which are playing important role. Religious organizations promoting their religion, they are non-state actors. Any such entity which is independently existing with the state, they are considered as non-state actors. So, International relations, the conventional definition is relationship between nations among the nations, but evolved definition of international relations includes the relationship between state actors and non-state actors also. The role of non-state actors in international relations is also important in the evolved definition. So the evolved definition of international includes what? Relations between among the states, relation between state actors and non-state actors, how non-state actors are playing an important role in relationship with in relations between these two, between the state actors is also important in the evolved definition of international relations. Whereas conventional definition takes into consideration only state actors interacting with each other continuously for some end goals, that is national interest. Whereas when it comes to here, the evolved definition includes both state actors and non-state actors. Understood? The first term that we need to approach while going through international relations would be the very term what international relations is. For that, we need to go through this back-end linkages or history. We have to understand that through the backward linkages we need to learn what state is, how nations have emerged, what is nation state, what is international relations. So, as we have come across this term international relations, next concept would be power. What do you mean by power? Power is the ability, power is simply ability of modifying, ability to modify. In international relations, it is not about interpersonal relations. In international relations, ability of one actor to modify the decision of other actor. The ability to modify, ability of one actor, you can say ability of one actor to modify other actors. Their actions, their behaviors, their decisions, everything. So one actor, the ability of one actor modifying the decisions and the agendas of other actor is nothing but the power. Power in international relations is. Power in normal parlance, in interpersonal relations, power would be, we can project power to interpersonal relations also. Power is modifying the way they behave. Power is the decisions, power is modifying the way they take the decisions, regulating their behavior. All of them comes under power when we talk about interpersonal relations. Whereas in international relations, it is about state actors, non-state actors, how one is modifying the other actor, their decisions, how they are being influenced. That is power. Power can be different type. Power can be of different types. Hard power, soft power, and smart power. What is hard power? Hard power is usage of coercion or force. One state actor using or one non-state actor using, any actors in international relations using force in order to modify the behavior of other actors. It comes under hard power tactics, you can say. Coercion or force being used. Example of that, you use military or economic sanctions. You either use military or economic sanctions to modify the behavior of these actors, that is called as, that is considered as hard power. When it comes to soft power as an idea, it was given by theorists, political international relations theorists. There is Joseph Nye. Joseph Nye has come up with this idea called as soft power. Soft power is using intangible elements. Soft power is using intangible elements. What are those intangible elements? Culture, religion, customs and traditions of one nation. Okay, there is no use to force. There is no need to use force here. Individuals modify their behavior. They will act according to your whims and fancies based on the elements you have which they are attracted towards. The features this nation has and they are attracted towards them. Today what is happening? Everybody is buying this yoga mat, the Westerners. Why is this? They are interested in yoga. They believe that yoga has some benefits. Yoga as a movement. Yoga emerged as a movement in the West. And everybody is interested in yoga. And International Yoga Day was also announced. International Yoga Day was announced. Reason being Indian government's efforts to exhibit Indian culture. If you take the example of West Asia and Central Asia, they were interested in Bollywood movies. They don't have their own industry. Film industry, only industry they have is Bollywood movie industry. They admire the actors and actresses of India. If you go to Central Asia and West Asia, this is the phenomena. In Southeast Asian nations also, you can expect the same. For example, from South India, South Indian industry, Tamilian movies, Kerala movies were famous. Malayalam movies were famous in island nations of Indian Ocean and Southeast Asia. Rajinikanth is very famous in Southeast Asia. Okay, because they are connected to us through history. Historically, we were connected through Buddhism, Hinduism. Islam has traveled. All these religions have traveled from India to other nations in Southeast Asia. Like that, culture, intangible elements. Whereas here, hard power uses tangible elements which can be touched, felt. Coercion, economic sanctions. What is economic sanctions? Imposing restrictions that you should import from these nations, you should not import from these nations. Or modifying the behavior of all the actors, asking them to isolate one actor through sanctions, so that you should not export to that nation, you should not import from that nation. Completely isolating you from the global arena, which takes away your spirit, which suppresses you. That is hard and soft power difference. Whereas smart power is the ability of any actor to use hard and soft power in those proportions as it feels necessary, using both hard and soft power in proportions which are necessary to achieve the ultimate objective of achieving national interest of that nation which is trying to intervene. Okay, any actor which uses both hard and soft power in proportions as it feels necessary. It uses both hard and soft. Let us say it uses hard power 20%, soft power 80%, or 50% hard power, 50% soft power. In proportions as it deems may fit for modifying the behavior of other actor. This kind of power is called as smart power. Smart power. So these are the different types of power we have: hard power, smart power, hard power, soft power, and smart power. Any doubt on the things that we have discussed until now? The concepts that we have discussed until now? This is the concept of power. In order to understand how different actors behave differently in different situations and circumstances, we need to have an understanding some theories on the theories of power. There are certain theories of power we need to understand. Theories of power helps us in assessing what moves the other actor is, what decisions the other actor is taking. We can expect beforehand what might be the decision of other actor by understanding these theories. One theory of power is realism. Other theory of power is liberalism. Other theory of power is idealism. The third theory of power is liberalism. The fourth is Marxism. Fifth is feminism, etc. You have a lot of theories like post-modernism, post-colonialism, like that. You have other theories, but important theories that we need to go through would be realism, idealism, liberalism, and Marxism, feminism as well. So what is realist perspective or approach to power? When it comes to realists approaching power, realists or realism, perspective of realism towards power. Those actors which are realists, those actors who believe in this ideology called as realism, they are after power. They feel that power is the only way we can protect ourselves. They are after power. They run after power. They continuously want to acquire more power. They feel that the predisposition they have is the world is in anarchy. The world doesn't have anyone to regulate the nations. The world is in anarchy, nobody to regulate. Although we have this organization called as United Nations Organization, its role is very limited. We cannot control or modify the behavior of all the actors in the world. Anarchy is a governmentless, a stateless society. Anarchy is statelessness or lack of government. One entity to regulate the behavior of individuals. So if at all you don't have any entity to modify or regulate your behavior, what would be the consequence? Consequence would be disorder, lack of peace in the society, or in for the world, lack of peace and prosperity, because the society, the world is stateless world or governmentless. World government is not there. The only way you can protect when there is nobody to dictate others is obviously acquire more power continuously. Try to acquire more power and more power. Try to become powerful so that nobody touches you. You become overpowerful to the extent that nobody even thinks of touching you. So that is what realism is. Realists are power mongers. Realists always are behind power. They continuously seek power. They use they are not concerned about the means they are using for achieving their end goal, that is national interest. The means might be ethical or unethical, but what they want, ultimately, it is power. You can take the example of USA, the policies of USA. They have invaded Iran and Iraq. The objective would be the oil resources they want for the USA economy to run. Right? So they ultimately want oil resources. They have invaded Iran and Iraq. Today also you can observe, USA can intervene in any nation. Wherever there is conflict, USA was there. In Afghanistan, it was invading Afghanistan. It was introducing its military forces in Afghanistan, but without throwing any amicable solution to Afghanistan's peace and prosperity, it went out of Afghanistan. So these nations which are realists, obviously, they are unilateral in nature. They take decisions unilaterally. They don't take into consideration the views or opinions of other elements or actors. We'll discuss. Following realism is an ideology is different from implementing that to the core. Proportions is also different. Okay? So that is the policy. That is one theory called as realism. Next we come across this theory called as idealism. What do you mean by idealism? Being ideal. What do you mean by being ideal? There are a lot of ideals that we want to achieve in personal lives, also in professional lives. Nations also have a lot of ideals. Mahatma Gandhi was one person who was having this ideal that we can establish a non-violent society. Is it an ideal or reality? Is it ideal or real? Can we create a non-violent society? He wanted to achieve independence through non-violence. Was it a possibility? Violence was very much involved in achieving independence for India. We should not avoid this fact. He was suspending very movements, a lot of movements he has initiated by himself. He has suspended them because of violence. Violence is inevitable. That is an ideal. The lofty goals we have are ideals. Some ideals individuals have. For example, I have to wake up at every day I have to wake up at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. That is an ideal or real aspect. It becomes ideal in our life. That is a problem. Okay? So idealism is the lofty goals we have. Idealist perspective believes in what? It believes that all the nations are friendly. It believes in projection. You project that all the nations will behave similar to you. If you are good, they will behave in the same manner. Okay? If you are extending your support to other nations, you believe that they will also extend their support to you. You find Jawaharlal Nehru following the same idealistic policy towards China. He was an idealist. He believed in international or global institutions. He believed in global institutions like United Nations. He believed in global institutions like United Nations organization. He believed in all other organizations which can protect the world. Idealism doesn't believe in anarchy. Idealism believes in existence of some global institutions for protecting the nations. Right? That is what idealism is. Believing in those elements like what? Global institutions, feeling that other nations would be friendly to you. You project the same behavior you are having will be reciprocated to you. they are not correct. Sometimes, all the times they may not be correct. That is idealism. Jawaharlal Nehru was criticized for being ideal, and that was the reason why we have lost Aksai Chin to China in 1962. One territory of India, that is Aksai Chin in northeastern part of Ladakh, it was taken away from India in Indo-China War in 1962. The reason being, Nehru was believing that China is a good friend and it will not interfere with India's internal matters. But it has taken away Aksai Chin from India. It was claiming the Arunachal Pradesh, Northeastern Frontier Agency, the territories of Northeastern Frontier Agency. So idealism is that philosophy which believes in ideal aspects. Next is liberalism. What is liberalism? What do you mean by liberalism? Very well know. Everybody knows about liberal ideals. What are liberal ideas? Liberty, equality, fraternity, justice. These are the features of liberalism. It believes in rights. Protection of what rights? It believes in protection of human rights. It believes that United Nations Organization, United Nations Human Rights Council is one organization which can protect human rights of people. So liberalism is also believing in what? Global institutions. It doesn't believe in anarchy. It also believes in this idea of democratic peace theory. It essentially believes that democracies are peaceful, far more peaceful when compared to other nations. It believes that democracies are far more peaceful when compared to other nations, and they don't involve in war normally. They don't involve in war. Historically, if you observe, democracies try to negotiate with other nations, try to settle the bilateral issues peacefully, in a peaceful manner. That is what democratic peace theory means. USA, India is the largest democracy. USA is second largest democracy. You can witness. India has never ventured to occupy other nation. India was never using means which are unethical in approach towards other nations. So liberalism believes in liberal values, protection of human rights, protection of the people, human security besides national security. It believes in human security. Human security includes food security, provision of essential services to the citizens, like that. So it also believes in this theory called as democratic peace theory, saying that democracies and peace go hand in hand. Democracy and peace go hand in hand. So that is liberalism. Whereas coming to Marxism, what do you mean by Marxism? What is the ideology of Marxism? Marxism believes in historical existence of exploitation. Historically, exploitation is part and parcel of the society. If you take society, there would be oppressed and oppressor. There would be oppressor who is exploiter, who exploits the people. Oppressor and oppressed. If you take industrialist societies during Industrial Revolution, Marx was analyzing the industrial societies during Industrial Revolution. He has found out that there are two classes in the society. One is worker class, the other is the industrial class or business industrial class or richer section, industrialists. They are exploiting the worker class by making them work in the industries for many hours. The stringent work hours, less pay than they contribute, all of them are features of the society. Exploitation is part and parcel of the society. Marxism projects this same kind of exploitation. Marx says that this sort of exploitation is existing because of capitalism. Capitalism believes in industrialists becoming richer and richer, workers being downtrodden, becoming poor and poorer. So capitalism has to be eliminated from the world. That is what Marxism believes in. If you project that to the world affairs, international relations, there are some nations who are capitalist in nature. There are certain nations who are communists. There are some nations who are considered as socialists. There are democracies as well who are capitalist nations. Okay. So in order to eliminate capitalism, obviously capitalism has to be eliminated from the world in order to establish one equal world for all. Equal and just world can only be created when you eliminate capitalism. Capitalism can be eliminated only when you eliminate nations who are promoting capitalism, like USA, the European nations, some nations in Southeast Asia like Japan, South Korea, who are influenced by capitalism. So elimination of capitalism will establish one just world, just and equal world, and everybody will be equal in the society as well. Okay, so as on today, Marxism believes that the world is unequal. World is unequal, the societies are unequal. Okay, eliminate capitalism, establish just world. It says that the reason why wars are happening continuously, it is in the interest of capitalists, wars are happening continuously. It is the interest of business class, people are dying. That is what Marxism believes in. Then we have another theory which is called as feminism, feminist approach to international relations. Feminism. What feminism believes in? Feminism believes in what? Differences. Gender. It wants gender justice. Discrimination is existing. Who takes decisions for this world? Who are taking decisions in this world? Who is supposed to take decisions? Anyhow, women are 50% of the population of the world. Nearly 50% of the population of the world are women. In that context, women should be given equal. Women should be allowed to take decisions at the higher levels. If you take United Nations organization, United Nations Security Council is one important, powerful body of United Nations. Or you take heads of state of different nations, heads of state or government of different nations, less number of women as heads of state. Then can you expect decisions being taken with gender in consideration? Gender sensitive decisions are not taken. It is patriarchy which is ruling this world. Globally, institutions, nations themselves were influenced by patriarchy. The decisions are also in that direction only. So if at all you can do justice to women, you have to include them in the higher positions, whether it is organizations or nations themselves. Understood? That is what feminism believes in. So after understanding these theories of power, we can know what different nations are thinking, what is their approach towards other actors in the world affairs. If you take USA, what is its approach towards other actors? It is after power. Whoever you might be, I will be after power. I will try to protect myself. There is no other person who can protect me except my power, my ability. If you ask India, it is asserting itself today. We are using realist foreign policy also because we have already tasted what idealism is. We have already tasted idealism and we have lost territories. In that context, we don't want to confine ourselves to the idealist foreign policy where we are reliant on other nations. India is as much as possible, it is asserting. Example would be India importing oil from Russia in spite of USA threatening us that we will impose sanctions if you import oil from Russia. If you are importing oil from Russia during Russia-Ukraine war, what would be the consequence? Russia will get more finances, it can finance the war for many years. And Indian Foreign Affairs Minister has asserted that if that is the case, India's national interest will come first. We will achieve this national interest. Obviously, no other nation is listening to you. If I ask USA to not to do something, will it listen to us? No, why is it? Every nation has to be equal. They have their own interests and demands. Why is it that USA is not listening to the interests, or why USA is not considering the interests of the world as its own interests? USA wants, or European Union wants, nations in the Europe wants, their problems to be considered as problems of the world. Whereas when it comes to the problems of other nations, they don't consider these problems as their independent problems, not the problems of the world. If you take the example of climate change, nations in Europe and nations in the West feel that climate change should become the problem of all. It is a problem of all. It is a problem of all the nations, both developed and developing nations, underdeveloped nations, small island developing states. All of them should contribute to overcome climate change. As per them, this is a global challenge and everybody should be participating in that. So, the world's problems are, its own problems. Climate change is, Europe is facing climate change today. It is most impacted by climate change. The reason why climate change came into existence, it is industrial revolution. Industrial revolution is the reason why we have climate change today. Who are those nations? Some 29 nations who are involved in industrialization, industrial revolution, were the reason why we have ozone depletion, we have pollution in the world. pollution of waters, high seas, biodiversity, erosion of biodiversity, loss of biodiversity, extinction of species. All of them would be the reason we have to point towards industrial evolution. These 29 developed nations were the reason why we have this kind of global warming and climate change today. They want all others to consider this as everybody's problem. When it comes to problem of nations like India, where they are finding it difficult to import oil from other nations during conflict, or if it takes a foreign policy decision of importing oil at cheaper rates from Russia, then Europe doesn't consider India's problems as problems of Europe. It is its own problem. It has to overcome this on itself. Or if you take the problems of developing nations who are in the South Asia, in Asia, Africa, Latin America. If you take the problems that the nations in Asia, Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia are facing, developing nations are facing. Poverty, unemployment, downtroddenness, lack of technology. These are the problems. Then Europe also should think that these are problems of the globe. But you are thinking that these are their own problems they should overcome. This is the irony we have in international relations, international world affairs. In this context, India is asserting itself, whatever might be the decision of other nations, not being impacted by those external decisions. I will pursue my national interest. I will assert my national interest wherever possible, whether it is global fora, or it is in bilateral relations, or it is in bilateral regional groupings, or any other such fora. Understood? So that is how we are constructing our foreign policy today. So it will help us in understand, this series will help us in understanding different perspectives with which nations are approaching each other, so that we can, beforehand we can assess what is that they are going to do with respect to our decisions, what they may do if I take a decision, how I have to approach those nations. If I am taking this decision, what would be the consequence? Based on the theories we can learn. That is why theories of power, at least we should know what are these theories of power, what they have to tell, what they can tell us about the approach in international relations. So this is one concept we can learn. So like this, we have to go through the terminologies in international relations. Various other terminologies are also there. On a daily basis, we will be learning these terminologies. I will introduce and complete these terminologies. In between also, while discussing bilateral relations, there are certain terminologies we come across. We will be discussing them there. Okay. So while after completing these terminologies, we will be discussing the determinants of foreign policy, determinants of something called as foreign policy. Foreign policy is nothing but policy of one nation towards one actor towards other actor. Actor A's policy towards actor B. It is foreign policy. Although foreign policy is not clearly mentioned in the syllabus, there is no need for it to be mentioned, because one nation's policy towards other nation, it becomes foreign policy. What is India's foreign policy? How it has evolved over a period of time. Initially, what are the determinants of foreign policy? What are the factors that influence the foreign policy decision making? We will discuss the determinants. After that, we will be discussing the evolution of Indian foreign policy. The evolution of Indian foreign policy. How it has evolved since independence, that is 1947 to till now. In different phases, how it has evolved. Phase 1, phase 2, like that. We have different phases in the evolution of Indian foreign policy. We will be discussing how it has evolved over a period of time under the influence of different determinants of foreign policy. So that is called as evolution of foreign policy. After completing evolution, we will start discussing bilateral relations. In bilateral relations, initially we will be starting with the neighborhood. Neighborhood includes India's relationship with Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, all other nations in the neighborhood, so on and so forth. We have various nations in the neighborhood. I have to tell you something here. Whenever we are discussing bilateral relations, there is a certain framework in bilateral relations. That framework includes, initially, we go through the historical background, if any. We will go through the historical background between two nations, if at all we share any culture, history, past, if we have any shared concerns. We will go through the historical background. We will know why India's relationship with some nations is like this today. We will know that through historical background. we will throw some light on historical background and understand how the relationship with other nations are crafted over a period of time. Then after discussing this, we will discuss the areas of cooperation which allow us to cooperate. The areas of cooperation, it might be like, let's say 5 to 6 areas of cooperation, or sometimes it would be 10 areas of cooperation. What are those areas of cooperation which allow us to cooperate with other nations, which create interdependencies? Besides that, there are major irritants. What are the major irritants in relationship between two nations? What major irritants we have? Like for example, with Pakistan, we have a border dispute. With China, we have a border dispute. With Pakistan, we have border and maritime disputes. With Sri Lanka, we have a maritime dispute. With Bangladesh, we have border which was settled, and we have maritime dispute which was settled. Like that, what are the disputes we have between two nations? They are considered as major irritants. Then how we can overcome these irritants? It is necessary that we need to have one opinion perspective. We need to go through the way forward. What is the way forward to overcome these challenges we are having with nations? Way forward. Solutions, you can say. Way forward is nothing but solutions over here. Way forward or solutions. We will be coming across way forward, or we can write a conclusion also. If possible, we'll write one conclusion. I'll tell you one solution how to overcome the challenges we are facing with with these nations, bilateral. Okay. So bilateral relations, completion of bilateral relations, starting from neighborhood, extended neighborhood, greater powers. After that, we'll be dealing with the international bodies, global regional groupings, like that. Okay. This is how the module goes with respect to international relations. Right, we'll meet in the next class, continue the discussion on the terminologies. After completion, as I told you, we'll start with the determinants of foreign policy.